A British politician walked into a packed Muslim crowd and dropped one of the most brutally honest takedowns of Islam's public image we've ever seen. I mean, no yelling, no theatrics, just raw statistics, real world evidence, and undeniable facts. And what followed? Silence. Not because they agreed, but because they could not refute a single word of it. And this is what happens when ideology meets reality.
So the Jewish guy made a video and titled it Proof That Islam is a Peaceful Religion. And then he took out a debate that took place between one of the famous Muslim debaters, Mehdi Hassan himself, and a British politician. And then he hyped it so much at the beginning, as you can see, and he made it look like the woman dealt a finer blow to the image of Islam in such a way that she destroyed it completely. We are going to start with what he wrote on that his video, asking, can you prove that Islam is a peaceful religion? No. We are going to correct the question in this particular video. It was supposed to be, can you prove that Islam is not a peaceful religion? Can you prove that? And that actually is what they have been struggling to do. But to no avail.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone can hear me. How to respond to a lot of this? First of all, on the bar, you said you admitted yourself that the bar had been set quite high. I would suggest, though, that the burden of proof is on the proposer rather than on us. It quite clearly says Islam is a religion of peace. I suggest you prove it. We've also been told here tonight when we opened that this debate must take place in the real world. Well, absolutely, yes, it must. It must take place in the real world. And I will describe what Islam is doing in the real world.
I like the fact that they made the debate to reflect the real world, to reflect what is really happening in the real world of today. And somebody is asking us to prove that Islam is peaceful in the same real world where Netanyahu is nominating Trump for the Peace Award.
Region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know.
The same real world where Daniela West is being nominated to receive the Peace Award.
Daniela Weiss is nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Seriously? This lady?
There will be no Arabs in the Gaza Strip. I want them out of Gaza. And we'll use different methods. One of them is not to give them any humanitarian aid, so the countries of the world will have pity on them and take them.
And they want to give her a Peace Prize?
The same real world where Gaza has been turned into a flat, empty desert as if nobody ever lived there. The same real world where we see people starting conflicts and making an entire region vulnerable and later receiving peace awards. The same real world where we are suffering from the products of the US and NATO, like the ISIS. The same real world where countries like Libya shed tears whenever they remember their past. Whenever they remember what was sold to them as democracy and has turned them 100 years back, turned their country into a living hell. The same real world. Where Sudan, Syria, northern Nigeria, and everywhere we have a big Muslim population. A terrorist group is created and planted there with the aim to destabilize the area and then label it on the Muslims. The same real world. Where everyone has realized this to the extent that the Western man do not longer trust the narrative of his government, but finds solace in Islam. And they are accepting Islam in truths, as if it is just the time when Allah sent down the ayah to the Prophet. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. This is like, it is just happening now. They thought they were going to create a scenario called 7/11, called 7 October or whatsoever, creating a fictitious action from a group called Hamas. And then they will use it for more than 2 years now to wipe out an entire population of Gaza. But to their greatest surprise, the Gaza scenario has brought more population to Islam in the last 2 years than they have ever imagined. This is the real world. Don't forget this when you want to tarnish the image of Islam in the real world.
We can debate theocracy day in, day out. We will never agree. We can debate, is there a God, isn't there a God, is the Quran real, isn't it? None of it actually matters. What matters is what happens in the real world, as my opponent quite rightly said. My side of the argument is regularly told that we've heard it again tonight, we were described somewhat as hate. We were told that we are demonizing Islam, whipping up fear of Islam. Not the first time I've been accused of this, probably won't be the last. But let me just say, and let's take this into the real world as we've been advised to do, let me tell you what actually whips up fears of Islam. We take it from the top: 9/11, the London Underground bombings, Madrid, Mumbai, Mali, Bali, northern Nigeria, Sudan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Yemen, Pakistan, death for apostasy, death for blasphemy, death for adultery, death for homosexuality, gender segregation, gender discrimination, unequal testimony between men and women in legal proceedings, child marriage, amputations, beheadings, imprisonment for being raped, anti-Semitism, burqas, execution, as I've said, for this, that and the other, the slaughter of Theo van Gogh on the streets of Amsterdam, death threats on the streets of London, butcher those who insult Islam, Muslim patrols in East London telling people they are entering Sharia controlled zones, polygamous marriages, marriage not requiring the consent of the bride. This is what causes fear of Islam. It is not me, it is not my colleagues on this side.
What information on that point?
Why would someone who is actually honest forgo incidents that has occurred in the history and shaped the history of the world? Very unfortunate incidents like the First and the Second World War. Just to tell us about a 9/11 that remains questionable to date. So the harm that was caused to the world by the First and the Second World War alone, which was not supposed to be, can that be ever comparable to what happened during the 9/11? How can you compare threatening somebody in the streets of London and releasing mayhem on the people of Gaza for more than 2 years? How can you compare these two? How can you compare creating a group called ISIS to terrorize the Islamic region and threatening someone somewhere in Mumbai? How can you compare creating a T group in the northern Nigeria, which everyone knows that was created by the West, the same way they created Al-Qaeda and the ISIS and so on? How can you compare the harm they have done to the people of northern Nigeria, the Muslims of northern Nigeria, to bullying someone in the streets of London? This is somehow laughable, but it's a pity. One day you will live to experience what those people whom your government created T groups to terrorize experienced in their own homes. And by then, maybe experience will teach you some morals.
If Islam and Muslims are responsible for the Muslim patrols,
I'm not finished. I'm not. No, I'm not. I mean, let me speak on. But the point is that it is not I or my fellow debaters on this side who are causing fear of Islam. It is the actions of Muslims that are causing fear of Islam. That is the real world. That is where we actually live. Then we'll be told that this is just the extreme fringe of Islam. Well, let me have a look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, the custodian of its holy sites. In Saudi Arabia, a woman is not allowed to drive. She is not allowed to leave the house without a mahram. She is not allowed to vote, although they've been incredibly generous by allowing some votes in the next elections. This is apparently the extreme fringe.
Maybe what she meant to say was Saudi Arabia, where men will tell women to sit in the house and tell them, I will go out there, work, toil my ass out and work 24/7 to make sure that I feed you, I clothe you, and I provide just everything you need in life. If that is not the treatment given to queens, then which one is? Maybe she meant to say in Saudi Arabia, where women do not bother about waking up 4 a.m. in the morning and rush to the train station and ride train 20 or 40 kilometers away from their home with all the stress, sleeping in the train and going to an office on a daily basis, something a woman naturally and normally is not supposed to be doing. Maybe she is talking about a Saudi Arabia that gives an ordinary woman the treatment of a queen. She's talking about a Saudi Arabia that has denied their women that disgrace that the Western woman is going through, that has denied their women the right to work and feed their own children and to take care of the bills of the house where they stay with their husbands. Maybe a Saudi Arabia that says, no, we are not going to divide the expenses of life, the expenses of living into two, where a man takes half and a woman takes half. Tell this to the Western woman and see if she would not like to be a Saudi woman the next day. Or maybe a Saudi Arabia that tells the woman, as long as you are a woman, you deserve to have a guard that is given to you by God, free of charge. In every stage of your life, there is a man allocated to always guide you and protect you from the harms of the society. If you are still a child, you have your father, your brothers, your uncles, paternal and maternal. When you become a woman and you get married, you have your husband, your father-in-law, and your son to always guard you free of charge. That's what she's talking about. If having a guardianship was such a very bad idea, why do queens and people of high ranks need it? Why do they need a guard around them? A common celebrity will need a guard around them. And you think a Muslim queen, a Muslim girl, should not need a guard around her?
People are executed for blasphemy, executed for apostasy. In Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, we'll be told that's the extreme fringe of Islam. No, it is not. Calling Saudi Arabia the extreme fringe of Islam is like calling the Vatican the extreme fringe of Catholicism. Sorry, it just doesn't work. So much, I'm constantly told as well that I need to respect Islam. I'm never quite given a good enough reason why. I am under no greater obligation to respect Islam than I am any other beliefs. I'm under no more obligation to...
When you watch this woman speak, you can't help it but feel pitiful for these people from the West, how they have completely lost the only religion that they used to claim to be their backbone, the Christianity religion, to secularism. Because if only they had an idea about the Christianity religion and what it teaches, and they were even ready to practice a bit of it, she would not be here accusing Islam of social legislatives that are even worse in their own scriptures, the Bible. You will not be telling us about early marriages if at all you had a religion called Christianity, because it is worse in your scriptures. You will not be telling us about apostasy, because if you read 1 Samuel in the Bible, you will cover your face in shame to come out and accuse Islam of apostasy laws.
As the only woman here, I have some particular issues with the way women are treated in Islamic states. Now, you can argue that they've got it wrong. Tell them that, because they seem to think that's what it is. Is there a peaceful Islam? Yes, there is. It's in the hearts of peaceful Muslims. Unfortunately, though, there's also a rather more objective Islam, and peaceful Muslims have to do some really rather creative interpretation, like the command to beat her. There are hundreds of millions of peaceful Muslims. That is a fact. But that does not mean that Islam itself is peaceful. Peaceful Muslims interpret verses of the Quran so almost beyond recognition. It's reinterpreted, like the command to beat her. It's there in the Quran, and I've seen Muslim women try to dance around it. They put words in there that simply aren't there. That's what it says. It says beat her. And in the countries where the Quran calls the shots, that is exactly what they do. This is not peace. This is not justice. Islam is not a religion of peace, as the evidence shows us. Thank you.
If evidence of virginity is not found in the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house and have the men of the city stone her to death.
That's totally extreme.
But what if I told you that this actually was the Bible?
Have a nice day.
Women should be kept silent in places of worship, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission.
Yeah, that's really harsh. What?
Now what if I told you that this is actually not the Quran and it's the Bible?
I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I was like, the Quran does not say that about women.
If a wife does not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. And if there is anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home.
We don't know everything.
This is actually the Bible.
Wow. Son of a gun.
Women should be kept silent in places of worship.
It's a little messed up.
What if I told you this? That this is actually the Bible? What if I told you this was the Bible, not the Quran?
I am Katana. We gotta take off.
Okay, so what if I told you that this actually was the Bible?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
There is nothing more to say, as you can see. Thank you for watching, and please do not go away without subscribing. Turn on the notification button and share this video. May Allah bless you as you do so. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.